Hi, this is Sean Bagshaw, one of the members of Photo Cascadia. I find that producing a print of an image that really lives up to what I hope for can be one of the greatest challenges in photography, even though producing good prints is becoming easier all the time. As long as I have carefully developed my images on a calibrated monitor, ordering a print through a print lab or printing on my own photo printer generally yields very good results. But producing a print that I feel is the best it can possibly be for a certain type of paper viewed at a certain distance and under certain lighting conditions is often elusive. The light source a print is viewed in greatly affects its apparent brightness, color, and contrast. Soft proofing in the computer is helpful for optimizing an image so that it will print as closely to how the image looks on the screen as possible. I have an article and a video on the Photo Cascadia blog on soft proofing in Photoshop that you might find helpful. However, while soft proofing is good for compensating for paper color and brightness, it can't help anticipate how the texture of the paper, the viewing distance, and room lighting will affect how the printed image will look. Hard proofing is really the only way to make fine adjustments for such variables. Hard proofing is the process of printing a test print, evaluating it in the intended viewing conditions, making adjustments, printing it again, and then repeating this process until you are satisfied. Obviously, hard proofing can be time consuming and expensive. I don't do extensive hard proofing for every print I make, but when a print isn't living up to my expectations, there's a technique that I use that is often helpful and allows me to cut way down on the number of hard proofs that I need to make. This technique can be used to optimize any variable that will affect how your final print will look, such as brightness, color balance, contrast, saturation, and even sharpening. To demonstrate, let's look at adjusting for print brightness. I'll demonstrate with this image that I took in the Alvord Desert. Here are all my adjustments in my master image file, and I organize them all in a folder called optimization, so I can easily collapse that folder when I want to. And I can also, with a single click, turn off the visibility of all the adjustments at one time. So that's the image as it came out of my camera, and that's after my adjustments. If you wanted to retain the printing adjustments I'm about to make, you can include them in the master image file in another group folder that can be turned on for printing. However, there are enough variables of paper, image size, and viewing conditions that I find I rarely use the exact same printing adjustments again. Usually, I'll make a duplicate of the image with all of the layers merged, and then use this to make my print adjustments. I know that this image will need to be lightened for printing, I just don't know exactly how much. I'll apply lightening to the image by creating a levels adjustment layer and setting the blending mode to screen. If it looks too washed out, I may make some minor adjustments to the midtone slider. Now I'll get the gradient tool, make sure that my foreground color is set to black, and then I'll drag a gradient across the image from white to black. The gradient on the mask that I just made allows that lightening adjustment to go from 100% at the left side of the image to 0% or no adjustment on the right side of the image. Somewhere in between 100% of the adjustment and none of the adjustment is the correct amount of lightening for the print. Next, I'll go to Image, Adjustments, and Posterize. And this enables me to posterize the mask, which in essence turns the gradient into bands of tonal values. And I can set how many tonal levels I want to see. Right now there are 4, but I can make lots and lots of them. I find that 5 is usually plenty. So I'll say OK. And if we want to take a look and see what that mask looks like, instead of the gradient, we have bands of different levels of gray. And that is applying the lightening adjustment to different degrees in different parts of the image. Now I would produce a test print of the image with the brightening adjustment banded across it. Next, I evaluate the print in the lighting conditions that it will be viewed in. Let's assume that this middle band is the one that looks the right brightness for the print. Back in the computer, I would view the mask by Alt clicking on it or Command clicking on a Mac, and then I would choose the eyedropper tool to select that shade of gray that's in that center band. That sets it as my foreground color. Finally, I'll go to Edit, Fill, and I'll fill the mask with that foreground gray color. So the entire mask becomes that middle gray color. And what that does is enables that amount of the lightening adjustment to be applied across the entire image. So now when I print it, the entire image should be the correct brightness. Now that I have my print brightness adjustment dialed in, I could use this same technique for making a color balance adjustment for print, or a contrast adjustment, or a saturation adjustment. To use this technique to determine the right amount of sharpening for this print, I'd have to add in a couple extra steps. First, I'd want a size for print. So let's say I want to print it at 300 dpi and at 12 by 18. Now that it's the correct size for printing, I'll duplicate the background layer, Control J or Command J on a Mac, and then I'll apply my sharpening to that copy layer. And I'm going to apply more sharpening than is needed. So really pull the amount up and the radius, and I'll just look in the preview here and see that I'm really over sharpening. A little bit lower radius probably is fine. And then I'll say OK. And so I've over sharpened now that background copy layer. Next, I'll apply a white mask to the copy, and then I'll do the same as before. I'll use the gradient tool with the foreground color set to black and pull a gradient all the way across the mask, and then I'll go to Image Adjustments and Posterize to posterize the mask, and again I'll probably do 5 levels. Now at this resolution, it's really not possible to see the effect of the sharpening, but if we look at the mask, we can see that we do have the bands of the different shades of gray. So the white area is showing all of the sharpening, and the black area, the effect of the sharpening, is being completely masked out, and then there's different amounts of sharpening in between. So if I zoom in on this to 100% or pixel for pixel viewing, all of the sharpening is being applied on this side of the image, and I can turn that on and off and you can see, and as we go across, the amount of sharpening is becoming less, and on this side there's no additional sharpening. So the next step would be to now print the image and evaluate the sharpening to see which level of sharpening is the right amount. Then again, you'd come back to Photoshop and Alt click on the mask, Command click on a Mac, and then use the eyedropper tool to sample the color or the gray tone in the part of the image that you felt had the correct amount of sharpening. Let's say it was here. So that sets that tone of gray to the foreground color. So the next thing we will do is go to Edit, Fill, and fill the entire mask with that tone of gray and apply that amount of sharpening across the entire image. So if you get to a point in your printing where you want to make hard proofs to really fine-tune the print so it'll be perfectly optimized for the viewing conditions, you can use this technique and make many fewer hard proof test prints.